In this video, I want to talk a little bit about range names. Every cell has a basic generic cell address or cell name, and it is the column heading and the row number. So here I am at D4, so that's its name. We can also name a cell a more usable or easier to remember range name. And there's two ways of doing it. The first way is to select the cell that you want to name, and then you go up to the name box. This is the same line that the formula bar is. So right now it says B4 because I'm going to name this cost per gallon. And so I'll go up here and I'll click, and then I can provide a name. And I'm going to call this cost per gallon, and then hit enter. Now, a couple of restrictions on naming ranges. You can't use spaces, and a lot of the special characters that you see on your number, the numbers along the top of the keyboard, are not accepted. If you attempt to use a range, a key, a character that's not acceptable, it'll tell you not acceptable, or it'll just ignore it. So if I click somewhere outside of what I just named, and if I go up here to the name box and I click this down arrow, I can now see my cost per gallon. If I click that, you can see that it moves it. If I go to a different worksheet, and then I go up here to the name box, and I click cost per gallon, it'll bring me back to that worksheet. So a range name is unique to the workbook. So if you need to have cost per gallon for multiple worksheets, then you would need to somehow identify that this cost per gallon is for instance, the range name worksheet that I'm working on right now. So a second way of creating range names is to let Excel do it from titles. So I'm going to select A4 to B5, and then I'm going to go to the Formulas tab, and then I'm going to go in the Define Names group, and I'm going to click where it says Create from Selection. Now, obviously, if I didn't have titles for this, then I couldn't do this. I'd have to name it manually. So I'm going to click on Create from Selection, and Excel will attempt to determine where the names for the ranges are going to be. So here it's going to be left column. So when I do this, the cost per gallon here, notice there's spaces there. Excel will substitute an underscore. Same thing with discount rate. So I will click OK. And now if I go up to the range, or excuse me, the name box, I click that, there are now 3 range names. The first one I created, the middle one here, cost per gallon, I created that one. So you can actually have multiple names of the same range, or the same range of cells, or just a cell. So same thing here, I can click on the cost per gallon that Excel created, discount rate that Excel created. If you need to rename any of these, you can go to the name manager, and this will list all of the range names you've created, or that are created for this particular workbook. If I wanted to change one of these, all I have to do is click on it and click Edit. And then I can rename it. I could get rid of these underscores, but then I'll be having the same name twice, and it wouldn't like that. So I could add a name to this. The comment is a little comment that helps you remember what this range name is. It's different than the insert comment that we've talked about previously. So this is just a comment that just helps you remember what this range name does. And then, of course, it refers to B4 in this range names cell. So if you decide to get rid of any of these, all you have to do is delete them. It will not affect any formulas that you've created. It'll just replace the range name with the original cell. Now the neat thing is, let me go back to this particular range name for this one cell. Notice it is absolute, $B, $4. And so what that means is that range names are by nature absolute. So it builds the absolute value, the absolute cell reference in that cell range that it provided. Now, a neat thing about using range names is you can use an easy to remember word as opposed to having to remember where the cells are. Now, you're not required to use range names, but they can help you in many instances. So I'm going to hit equal, and we're going to I want to determine the amount due. So I will click on gallons delivered times, and now I could have clicked on B4, nothing wrong with that, but I have a range name. So I'm going to do cost, and you'll see the range names. We have two here. I'll just use the one that Excel created, and I will hit the tab key. So now I hit enter, and let's just format this number nice. Let's just use accounting, and I'll copy this down, and you will see that it is now considered absolute cell reference, as we had done before. If I had not used the range name and I did not make something absolute, then it would change as the row numbers would change. The discount rate, I can do the same thing, equal. That'll be the amount due times, and I'll just start typing discount. Do make sure that you pay attention to the list that shows up so that you are working with a range name and not a function. So I'm going to click on discount rate, and I'll hit the tab key. And then I'll hit enter, and I can fill that down. The cash payment is 25% of what is due, so that'll be equal amount due times, I can either do 0.25, or to make it a little easier, I can type in 25 followed by the percent, and I can hit enter. And that's kind of neat for when you're going to do proofing. It's easier to have a percent, an actual percent sign, as opposed to 0.25. Both work. And then the balance owed equal amount due minus discount rate minus cash payment. And that'll be the amount due. And we can copy that down. Now in this example, I just used a single cell as a range. I can also create and use a whole range of cells, and that's what we're going to do next.